Thank you, Chair. I hear what everybody is saying, and I very much respect the emotion that's involved. But I stand here as a married person whose family is not included in this amendment, actually. so it is not without its boundary, and I think it is important that we keep it at an academic level also. We are senators. It is important that it isn't too personalised, and that we do it like that. However, I do think this referendum absolutely is necessary, and it's very, very important that we widen the span and definition and understanding of the family at a constitutional level. If we go back to the case law in the country, and we go back to McGee versus the Attorney General, Mrs. McGee was in a life-threatening position had she had another pregnancy. She won her right to have access to contraception, based not on the fact that it was a health issue, not on the fact that she had a human right from a health issue, but based on the fact that she was married and had an entitlement to privacy. You know, that is an obscene position and consequence of the Constitution. And while we also, within the Constitution, make provision for divorce. So for as long as we recognise the fact that marriage can break down, we needed at the same time to actually honour the fact that families then can constitute a whole heap of different things. There are families that are an amalgam of former partners, former wives, former husbands, all that come together as one single family. So we do need to modernise it. We do need to update it, and so I will absolutely be supporting this with a yes, and the other referendum, which we'll deal with later, as a yes. I think the O'Mara decision today is a little more nuanced. It's based on Article 42, in my understanding, rather than Article 41. It's based on the right of the child to be supported, and the pension going to, or the widower's pension going to that family because of the rights of the child, not from the fact that they were that their relationship was on par. And I think actually the members of the Supreme Court were very deliberate in stopping short of not intruding on what is currently within the Oireachtas. So I think that is important that we don't confuse the issues, because it doesn't lend itself in any way to today's debate. I have stood in the High Court, well, I've sat in the High Court as an observer, while the state argues, and the instructions to counsel for the state was to argue that the family before the High Court, appealing for its protection and the interpretation of law to afford a protection, while the state has said this is not a family. And shouldn't be afforded the protections of the state. So I have seen that, you know, and it has been, the Egan's themselves have come out and they have spoken about it. But for the Egan family, where Brian and Kathy have two children, the first born, naturally, and in the normal course of how children are born to a couple, and in that respect they are fully and wholly a family with all the constitutional protections. And their second child, who was born via surrogacy after years of absolute tragedy within that family, that second child is not, they are not a family with regard to that child. And I know, Minister, you will be urging that the AHR legislation comes through the Houses as quickly as possible, because we need to afford that. But there are, to sit in court and hear the state say you are not a family and not entitled to those protections is a fairly stark, frightening experience to happen. To think that the things that you presume as a citizen, a contributor, a member of our society, the things that you assume and would be entitled to assume, that they're not afforded to you, that you're not entitled to privacy, that you're not entitled to the decision making, that you're not entitled to those things, and no family should be put through that. Whether they're a single parent with children, whether they're, regardless of their makeup. That should not, we need to recognise the fact that grandparents rear children, rear their grandchildren, that single dads, single moms, it's not the province of any particular gender, it's not it's not any of those things. But to not be covered, to have the state be so stark is really, it's incredibly hurtful. It is incredibly shocking. It's a shocking experience. And while it wasn't me personally, all of the issues before the court applied to me personally. So I suppose to see it argued, to know that the state actually gives those instructions, to say you need to argue that this is not the case, it's not the fault of council. Council is arguing the law. So we need the law to change. We need the law to change, and that our Constitution stands for the aspirations of our people, the vision for our people, the boundaries, the things which we value. And our Constitution needs to reflect the values of our people. And the values of our people are the 42% that aren't born within marriage. Do you get a particular, are you more dutiful if you're married? I don't think so. And I agree completely with Senator McGrath. There's many a married couple are not dutiful at all, and many that aren't, that are very dutiful. So I think within this we need to, first of all, recognise that these provisions have boundaries. They have very clear boundaries, and families where a child has been born by a surrogacy are not included, even in durable relationships, even though I'm married 22 years. And I understand the reasons for that. I do, so I'm not expecting that it should be so elastic as to cover every possible scenario, because it needs not to. It needs to have clear boundaries, and so we introduce legislation that provides those pathways, that deals with those, or excludes, in the thruples, as you alluded to in the Dáil. So I just, within this, I think we do need to respect that case law down through the years has found its decision upon marriage, as in the McGee case, and other decisions where the family was not recognised, and is argued even unto today that there is no recognition of it as a family, and that is not a modern Ireland. That is not a progressive Ireland, and it doesn't reflect the progression and the inclusion that is required. Does it have implications for taxation, and does it have, well, I mean, one of the notes that I have to myself is, well, now maybe we need to go back and look at one of the pieces of progressive pieces of legislation that you brought through yourself, Minister, and that being the parents' leave. And one of the things of that at the time was that single parent families, the children in that were at a disadvantage, because two-parent families, both parents get that allocation of leave, but single-parent families, only one, they will only get the one parent getting that leave, and consequently those children are at that disadvantage. So I think there are things like that I'd like to say. In the future, I hope we will be looking at amendments that will have implications on, and that is very family-centred, very family needs. And if we need to change and progress our taxation, I think we need to, I went to the trouble of getting married. I wanted to, it was really important. I don't think it should change, though, my rights and entitlements in taxation. I don't think that it should put that at any higher level. That is a personal commitment. In some cases, it's a faith commitment. It's reflective of a person's own particular values. They're not superior. They're not inferior. They're the same, and they're just different. They're different choices, and then consequently we have this eclectic society, this society that reflects all sorts of decisions. So I don't see a problem actually in advancing and changing our taxation where required. I don't have an issue with that. You know, the O'Mara decision today in that way is progressive, because it was actually about the provision for the children. And I think that should be in keeping with our future jurisprudence along the lines of anything that flows from this constitutional amendment. So I will 100% support it. And I look forward to the clarifications and refinements that will come out of tomorrow's debate in the committee stage. So thank you, Minister.
Thank you.